Thank you all for joining us today, giving us a precious 30 minutes of your Friday to learn a bit more about what we have been working hard on here at Deeper Signals and are excited to release, which is what we're calling the learning journeys. And it's kind of a way of talking and thinking about feedback as an intro to this webinar. We put a poll on social media, which asked the question, what is the single most useful piece of feedback you have received? Period. In your career or in your personal life, what is the single most useful piece of feedback that you've received? And actually, I'm posing that question to you guys. So if you can, I'm going to read you one or two of the interesting answers, but if you can use the chat to post, if you think back to your career, what was the single most useful piece of feedback that you've received? One of the interesting ones we got back was, you come across as arrogant, for example, which is harsh, as candid, but probably if you think about it, very useful, right? I mean, imagine you go through your entire career coming across as arrogant and no one ever tells you that. Another one we got that was interesting was, when I was much younger, someone told me that I needed to take more time at the start of my meetings and conversations to connect socially. I was eager to talk about the work that I was up to, and I would skip the trust building step. It was a simple observation from my behavior, accurate, and it contained useful advice for me to change. So I think that was another interesting one. Again, valuable, a bit less, maybe candid, but super useful, especially you can see the person writing it, who I know is far along in their career, still remembers the feedback that they got many years ago. Now, Reese, do you see any interesting ones coming out in the chat?
Yeah, so we had some feedback from Cheryl saying she was told that she's too serious or needs to smile more. We also had others saying that you smile too much. So, it seems like you can't please everyone. An interesting one came from Andrew, who said he got feedback that someone said to him, he needs to look people in the eye more. So Andrew, if you're willing to kind of share a little bit about that, why did you get the feedback, and how do you use that in your professional career?
I'm not sure really why it came about. It kind of came out of the blue. It was an ex-girlfriend of mine who told me that, but it really, she said basically, if you want people to trust you more, you need to look them in the eye more. And it was not something I'd ever really thought about before, or that I was aware of, avoiding eye contact with people. But it's something that I became much more conscious of when I want somebody to trust me. That's really important.
Super interesting. Super interesting. Super. I guess during COVID time that becomes a lot harder, huh?
Okay, so we had some more feedback from Bob, who was told that he needs to listen more and speak less, which I think is
that's super valuable. And I received feedback from my manager that I got promoted to managerial position, although I was not ready for it. He said it in an anger moment, and while that has not surprised me, since I had realized that early on, it was confirmative, and it assured me that I needed to be better at managerial work. I mean, I won't read all of them, and that's a great piece of feedback. But I think what's key, and what's coming out of these conversations, is that feedback can be impactful. Many of us remember good feedback that we've gotten, useful, constructive, honest, for a very long time. Even something as maybe as simple as, you need to look people in the eye more is useful. And you can see that it's impactful. At the same time, feedback can be biased. We know that feedback can definitely be different for example, for men and for women, and women, the famous the famous comparison between, right, you're driven and hard working versus, you're overbearing and dominating, which is often told to women and men acting in the same way. So feedback can have a lot of challenges and problems, and negative feedback, not as in feedback that's constructive, but negative feedback as in feedback that's not given in the right way can have consequences. And so you can think about it that there's a crisis of misunderstanding in the workplace. Most of us don't understand ourselves. We all can use a mirror to be held up from time to time and to give us constructive ways of managing that feedback. 90% of people report, not properly understanding themselves. 70% of employees report leaving an organization because they don't feel like anyone is coaching them, managing them, helping them get to the next position. And so these are real challenges and burning issues. And at Deeper Signals, what we're trying to our mission is to bring a tool that is scientific, that is valid, that can give you that feedback in an engageable, approachable, but real way, right? Not a strengths-based, hey, you're amazing, you needed an ego boost today, right? It's real. We've all got strengths. We've all got weaknesses. Here are yours. And the last piece that we've been missing was, how do we scale the coaching, the insights to action, right? You learn the why, you learn who you are with a very good personality assessment. And the challenges we faced were always, the assessment is long, that's a barrier to entry. The assessment is technologically just hard to take, that's a barrier to entry. I just can't get through it. I can't get access to my account. When I'm done, and now I have a 20-page report with terms that I don't understand, graphs that are not meaningful to me if I haven't studied it. And so where that left us was, I need a coach just to interpret the feedback, right? And so we've solved that. And any of you on this webinar who have taken the Core Drivers assessment or any of our assessments, you know that we've definitely made a huge amount of progress on those challenges. The last piece was, how do we change behavior, right? Personality is not prophecy. Despite what we may have thought 10 years ago and what you may still see sometimes in the marketplace, understanding your personality does not tell you who you are for the rest of your life, and you have no more opportunity past the palm reading that we did for you. The modern approach, and what all the recent research is showing, and what we know, because that's where the coaching field comes from, is that with dedicated work, we can change our behavior, and then we can change our manifested personality. So if I'm super flexible or low conscientious in some terms, and I work on that, I can introduce habits and over time move the needle on that, so that I'm a bit more organized and disciplined. And Reese would appreciate that a lot because he works with me. So that's what we passionately believe, and the learning journeys are our first step to scaling that, so that I can go to an organization or a group of 100 or 1,000 or even 10,000 people, roll out this tool, and give every individual contributor and manager who we can afford to give a long, expensive assessment and coach, give them the tools they need to change their behavior. So that's the burning bridge, and that's why we've created the learning journeys. And now, Reese, I think I'll throw it to you to actually show everyone what these learning journeys look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Uri mentioned, our whole approach is about not only getting people to awareness and delivering that awareness at scale, but it's about providing everyone with personalized development opportunities that can help them grow and thrive in their careers. And so what I'm going to do now is just show you the 3 easy steps that people work through to kind of make this happen. So the very first step is completing the Core Drivers Diagnostic. This is a super short personality assessment. And we ask people to complete this to get a baseline understanding around kind of where they currently are. What dispositions do they have? How do they behave? And so, unlike other assessments, what we really try to do is help people feel understood, and as if they're having a conversation with a coach rather than being assessed. And so for those of you that haven't completed this assessment before, you'll see you have to choose between different adjectives. And we used machine learning to make sure that these adjectives are engaging, accurate, but also unbiased. And so as you work through this, it only takes around 5 to 10 minutes. And we really try to improve the way that this assessment experience is conducted, right? We want people to enjoy it rather than feel tested. And so we have these little nudges to kind of encourage people along and help them get to the end. Once they've done that, they then receive their core drivers report. And that report is automatically generated and presented to the individual. So we don't have to make them wait to get that PDF report. We're able to show that feedback right away. The thing that's unique here is rather than presenting everything that we've understood about you, we just highlight the 3 ways you are most unique, or what we call your core drivers. And so the report takes you first through how these core drivers are a strength. So here you can see that I am more candid than considerate, more pragmatic than curious, and then more outgoing than reserved. And so here what we're doing is providing people a language to talk about themselves, to gain that awareness, and they really attach a label to why they do the things that they do. And the feedback is very intuitive and non-technical. Again, it's feedback that should be understood, and we don't need coaches to become a gatekeeper and translate this. We want everyone to be able to read it and understand the feedback. As you move through the report, you can learn a bit about kind of how these core drivers become core risks. So when you're under stress and you're feeling pressured, how do you over leverage your strengths, and what can you do to mitigate those risks and continue to make effective decisions and be a productive member of your team? And also we provide insights into how your core drivers manifest themselves in team situations. So how can you show up in a group and really make sure that you're getting the most out of your team is getting the most out of your core drivers? So how can your candidness, pragmatism, outgoing really drive team performance? Now, most assessments kind of stop there, right? You've taken the assessment and you get your report, and then you're kind of left with this idea around like, so what? What do I do next? And so what we've really worked hard on is building this digital coach. And it's where you're able to take that awareness and structure support and development to build new behaviors, grow soft skills, and ultimately change aspects of your personality. And so this is where our learning journeys come in. Learning journeys are self-directed, personalized experiences that individuals can work through in their own time, and they're completely personalized to that individual's personality. So rather than this one-size-fits-all approach that's often used, which really doesn't fit anyone, they can have meaningful experiences that are bespoke and really speak to their individual needs and strengths. Each individual gets a learning journey for each core driver. So here there's candid, outgoing, and pragmatic. And you just click start your learning journey and away you go. The learning journeys follow the kind of structure that you would get if you was to work with an executive coach. So for example, here I'm just working on the idea of being upfront, straight talking, and maybe a little tough with people. How can I better use that talent, or also, smooth some of the edges around them? And so just like a good coach would, you would first raise awareness as to how this core driver is important and helps. And then as you move through it, you'll see all these different tips and activities that you can dive into to further expand your knowledge and pick up new ways of behaving. For example, how can you master being candid? So can we help you better leverage and amplify your talents? And so you'll see here, there's different tactics that you can dive into and start to practice right away. Each learning journey is different. So your candid learning journey will look slightly different to your considerate learning journey, and so on. Again, it's an interactive and novel experience. Now, as you just move through to the end, the key element here is bringing it all together through micro actions. And so as Uri mentioned, personality is not prophecy. And the idea is that with targeted interventions that are really personalized to you, you can bring about change. And so leveraging the latest science in nudging and behavior change, we have these micro actions which are behaviors that you practice over 30 days. And these behaviors are really just too small to fail. And so they're really easy to adopt in your everyday routine. And with continuous practice, you can really drive that change. And so the way this works is once you've gone through your report, gone through the learning journey, you're able to pick one of three actions. Each action is a really like surgical kind of focus on changing an aspect of what it means to be candid. And then what you do is you make your selection. So for the next 30 days, I'm going to try to be more open to criticism and be less defensive. I click that. I enter in my email address. And then what I'm going to receive over the next 30 days is a set of emails and nudges to kind of really keep me focused and on track with my development journey. And to also support that, we ask people to create an accountability partner. So find someone in your team that can help you along and be a source of strength as you're trying to grow and adapt. But also, we enable you to download a calendar invite and really block off some time in your week to practice this micro action, to reflect on your soft skills and re-engage with the content that you find in the Core Drivers report and in these learning journeys. So here it's the idea around taking that awareness, setting people up for success, and then giving them the tools and the environment to practice and develop. And you can imagine if you as an enterprise, you'd be able to deliver this to everyone in your organization so that even individual contributors can get the same level of feedback and insight that, say, a leader would get. If you're working in a small or medium-sized company, these tools can help you set up and refine some of your talent management practices. But even if you are a coach, you can use these types of tools to really enhance and support what you're currently offering. So in between your coaching engagements, you can have them work through their learning journeys and use it as a way to support and drive more impact.
Yeah.
So with that, that's the learning journeys. 3 simple steps: take the assessment, look at the report, and start working through the feedback. So
amazing, Reese. Awesome. And I only thing I'd add is, of course, these are customizable, and so they can be, changed if you're a coach or you're an enterprise and you have specific learning goals. You can tweak and change these for different assessments to make sure that they're focused on the goals that you have. And it looks like Tomas has joined. So we have our CEO Tomas, who's at Columbia now, teaching a class about self-awareness and feedback, and he's going to jump in for 5 minutes to talk about why and how important this is today. Hey, Tomas.
Hey, Uri, how are you? And hi,
I'm good.
everyone. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying this. From the last 2 minutes, I'm sure people are glued to their screens and finding all of this very captivating. I guess, the most important thing for us at Deeper Signals and why we started this venture and why we believe that what we're doing is solving an important real-world problem is the fundamental premise that there is a big crisis around understanding talent in the real world of work. I think fundamentally all organizations have problems, and most of those problems are people problems, and all of them have to do with an issue or deficits around understanding. Fundamentally, a lot of organizations don't understand the majority of their people. They don't understand the potential and the talent they have. And then you have people on the other side that don't understand their own potential, which is why they end up making silly career decisions, end up in jobs that are not engaging, where they can't thrive and perform very, very well or as well as they could in other places. So our premise or our mission, in a way, our mandate is to make data-driven feedback a really powerful tool for solving this crisis of understanding by helping people understand their potential and helping managers do what they find really difficult, which is to provide their people with data-driven, accurate, predictive feedback on their performance and their potential. We can unlock people's talents in whatever settings they're in. And I think the easiest way to think about this is how each and one of us has made better decisions, career-related decisions, through good feedback. There's always something that resonates that we maybe didn't expect to hear that changes the way we operate and the decisions that we make. And the key is not so much that that feedback is accurate or full of data or packed with evidence, but that it triggers us to change the way we operate. So there's always data, which is what we are good at, getting that data, insights, which are the stories that people need to hear based on that data. But then fundamentally, if you're not triggering change and people don't change the way they operate, it was all a pretty meaningless and useless exercise.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Thomas. So I think what we want to do with the last few minutes while we have everyone here is to actually just open the floor to some questions. So you've seen a little bit about how the tool works. You've heard from Thomas why self-awareness is important and kind of how we can use data and technology to bring about that change. But I think it'd be really interesting to hear, some of the challenges that you're trying to solve and some of the questions that you may have about deeper signals and these learning journeys.
So you can just put any questions you have into the chat, and then I will read the important ones out.
One question that we often get is, if you as an organization, how would you start to use some of these tools? And so we know kind of onboarding new technologies, new assessments is often, say, more hassle than it's worth. And what we've done is worked really hard to make sure that that is a frictionless and seamless experience. So we try to make life easy. As soon as you want to partner with us, it's just a case of identifying who you want to assess. And then we onboard you onto the platform. You're able to send invites out and start getting people that kind of feedback and insights within minutes. So there's a question from Cheryl asking about, what options do we have for distributors or resellers? This is a great question. So we do have distributions and reseller partnerships around the world. And that's something that we're definitely able to explore with people. It's been a great way for us to grow and a great way to get more impact within our tools and help people level up their own consulting or talent practices. So a question from Eli, around on average, how much time should a coachee spend on their micro actions? So this is a really good question because we know people are time poor. And so the micro actions are things that you can practice really within just 5 to 10 minutes a day, if that. We've really tried to make them seamless and things that you can kind of just slot in around your routine. But of course, if maybe once a month you want to spend more time with a deeper dive into your feedback in your report, that's obviously a good thing. But the micro actions are not meant to be more work, rather small things you can just insert and keep going about your day.
That's a great question, Patricia. Our coach is available in real time. I'd say watch that space. But right now it's your assessment, your report, and then the learning journeys. That's as interactive as digital allows us to get. But great question, and something we are doing a lot of thinking and work on as well. Tom, can this be integrated into succession planning? Of course it can, and it's critical to understand where people's strengths and risks are when you think about succession planning and when you think about the team as a whole. So our approach is much more about the holistic team than it is about any one individual being a high potential and tagging them and pushing them on through the organization. But when you think about, I have this team and I need to plan succession, do we have the right cognitive diversity in the team? Do we have the right tools that the team will need to be successful? Then if you have the deeper signal scores, you can definitely make a much more informed decision. And we're happy to support that as well with our research on the balance that you need in teams. Some segments of the workforce, like engineers, rely on Slack and other tools for communication more so than email. Can learning journeys be integrated into these platforms? David, that's a great question that we would love to explore. Right now it's emails, but it's quite, we've built it very modularly, so it's quite flexible. So I imagine we can work something around that as well. Something we've been thinking a lot about is just simply SMS, because that's a very straightforward way that people like to communicate. But let's chat about that. Chichek, how would you implement learning journeys into a larger organization? I think that's the sweet spot. That's where we want to be, because that's where traditional psychometrics and feedback is probably the most sparse and the hardest to implement at scale. And the process is very simple. Some learning about it, some training and with managers and HR team, and then a rollout. And then Deeper Signals usually manages or hosts a webinar where we can do, if you think about the individual debrief session being a 2-hour, $5,000 session, now you can do that to 1,000 people at an organizational webinar for less than that. And we do a group debrief, which is as effective when you have a tool that's as engaging and thorough and interpretable as ours.
And Chris, that's a great question as well. Can we link the learning journeys to the performance review process? And the answer is absolutely yes. The whole idea is, for managers, you can use the Core Drivers tool to become a better coach. And you can use those learning journeys as a way of structuring different development plans. And so again, these development plans have an edge on what's currently offered because it's completely bespoke to your soft skills. In many ways, it makes it very clear, where am I now and where do I need to get to? And it structures you along that way. And so with our clients that have used this in this sense, have had a lot of impact and a lot of value out of that, because it's much more focused, evidence-based. And as well, it improves the manager and direct report relationship, because the manager knows how to better manage that person, because they're aware of their talents and knows how to really get the most out of them.
So I'll take one more from Abhishek, which I think is important, and how a student can benefit from this before moving into a professional career. It's never too early to start becoming more self-aware. So absolutely, students can benefit from the tools that we are providing, both from the awareness and the behavior change perspective. It's critical when you're thinking about what career you want to go into, where your strengths lie, how you perform in school and on an interview. Honestly, it helps for relationships. So yeah, there's absolutely lots of value to using these kinds of tools to understand yourself better, and the learning journeys are a great leap as well for supporting you in changing those behaviors. Yeah. So I think it can be super valuable. Okay, cool. And Cheryl, I said one more, but Cheryl, yes, we can absolutely share some of those case studies with you. And there will be a recording to today's webinar. And we want to close as well with giving everyone who has joined a link to the assessment. So as a follow-up, you'll get an email and you will have a link. If you've already taken the Core Drivers Pro, it'll be a link that takes you to your assessment, which will now have the learning journeys backloaded into it. So it was an upgrade. Think like a Tesla, the upgrades come over air. And if you haven't taken it yet, this will be a chance for you to experience it free of charge, as a thank you for spending 30 minutes of your Friday with us.